much should you be looking to pay for a podcast editor? Well, let's dig into it, shall we? This is the Podcast Accelerator, brought to you by me, Mr. Mark Asquith, that British podcast guy, all-round nice chap, slightly receding hairline, and otherwise generally pretty solid guy to know. I am the CEO and co-founder here at Rebel Base Media. We make podcasting software, including podcast websites, productivity, and of course Captivate.fm, the podcast hosting, analytics, and marketing platform that cares about your podcast, and with a team that will not treat you like a fool if you don't know all the answers. We are there for you. So please go and check out Captivate.fm. It's pretty bang on as a podcasting platform. You can get 7 days free at Captivate.fm. Now, I am going to talk about podcast editors and what you should really be paying for them. But actually, that's a little bit unfair because I'm not going to tell you what you should be paying for them. I'm just going to tell you that, in my opinion, this is what podcast editing costs. All right? Now, you've got to understand a few things about podcast editing, so I want to dig into that as well. But before I do that, I want to also give a big shout out to the team at AWeber, my email marketing platform of choice. Brandon, Chris, and the team over there continually amaze me with just the way they do business. Now, it's important to choose partners that do business in a way that you would do business, and I believe that AWeber do that in the email marketing space. And with 20 years behind them as the industry leaders and over 100,000 people served every single day with fantastic email marketing, I don't think there's a better choice for your email marketing needs. So please go and check them out for your podcast because you need to be engaging with your audience. You can do it now at markasquith.com/AWeber. So the question comes up all the time in the Facebook groups, on the old internets, you know, the internets. And generally I see this question, all right? How much does a podcast editor cost? Well, how long is a piece of string? In fact, as with podcast editing, that's actually the wrong question. What do you want the string to do and what do you expect of it? The same, like I said, goes for podcast editing. The budget range is wide, but the quality range matches what you spend. Now, let me just kind of demystify this a little bit. In my view, there are a few different tiers of podcast editing. In particular, there are the people that are going to take your audio, quite literally just take your audio, they'll put some compression on it, they'll master it out, they'll do some noise gating, they'll take a little bit of the kind of, a bit of the naughtiness away from it, and they'll polish it up, and they'll just send you that file back. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. And that's pretty cheap. You know, you can maybe go on Fiverr, or you could outsource it to someone offshore in the Philippines or India and get that for a few bucks per episode. All right? Now, what about actual editing? What about choosing a good editor that is going to take your audio and turn it into a better version of that? So I think the next tier above that is someone who will take your audio and basically cut out the ums and the ahs and kind of just generally tighten up that audio and do all the other stuff that the other person would do as well, all the compression, the mastering, all that good stuff. All right, make the audio sound pretty sweet. I think, again, you can get that outsourced. You can maybe get it outsourced offshore. And again, you might have to pay 30, 40, 45 bucks for that per episode. All right? That's fine. Okay? But I think you can also take it up a level. I think you can get an audio kind of production person, an audio producer who will listen to the audio. So someone like Joel Sharpton would do this. Listen to the audio and actually make it better. And what I'm talking about here is they will listen to the narrative and they will use their skill and their experience to turn that story into a tighter story, a better story. They will take out some of the pauses. They will actually tighten up the audio. They will maybe even chop and change some of the flows of the answers to make sure that it's actually a story worth telling. That is a producer. All right. And I think you'd be looking at a good chuck for that. I think you want to be looking at sort of 90 to 150 bucks per episode for that. Now, that then begs the question, should you go offshore with it? Should you actually outsource offshore? Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but you've got to understand language barriers because they potentially do exist. All right. So if you want a good quality editor that can really do the best job, I think you need to be budgeting around 90 to 110 bucks, and you need to be looking for someone that's a native speaker of the language that your podcast is in, whether that's Spanish or English. I always recommend someone like Joel Sharpton. I think he's fantastic. And what I would suggest with that is that you're really clear on what you want from this, all right? If you just want to chuck your file to someone, them not do anything but tart it up, give you the compression, give you the mastering, give you the right output levels, you can pay a bit less for that. You might get that for 40 or 50 bucks. But if you're serious about this and if you have the budget, I would urge you very, very clearly to go for a slightly higher level of production where they're going to tighten up the audio, take the ums, take the ahs out, take the breaths, the coughs. I'd probably do that myself. Take the breaths and the coughs out and actually tighten up some of the answers or tighten up some of the story beats for you. I think you probably want to be budgeting, like I said, 90 to 110 to maybe 150 for someone like a Joel Sharpton to dig into this one. Now, should you pay for that? Well, ultimately, I think in the early days, maybe you can get away with it. Maybe you can outsource it to someone offshore to just tighten the audio up. Maybe you can use something like Ali2, which is a wonderful tool for doing that automatically online and that integrates beautifully with Captivate to save yourself that $30-40 a pop. Yes, use something like Ali2 for that. In the future, I would suggest that actually, if you can generate some revenue from Patreon, if you can generate some revenue from listener support or from sponsorship, just go ahead and reinvest back into that. And what I would also suggest you could do is you could maybe even look for an editor like Joel Sharpton or someone like that. I'm not getting any affiliate income for this, by the way. I just like Joel. So you could maybe look for someone like Joel who will write your show notes as well. And maybe even do the publishing to a platform like Captivate. So you actually, for an extra $30-40 an episode, you actually throw that out to Joel's team and they do everything. You just give them the audio, they top and tail it with the intro. They maybe do a lot of the narrative production on it. They'll do obviously the mastering, the audio production side of things, but also they'll write the show notes and pop it on Captivate and schedule the release date. Okay. Now there are processes that you need to go through with that, but I think for that, maybe looking at $160, $170 per episode. All right, maybe, and that's in dollars. So there is a scale to this. There is no right answer to what a podcast editor costs. Ultimately, it's about finding the right person to do the right thing for your show at the right time. And you can scale that up as you need to scale it. Start with something like Ali2 that's going to do you wondrous audio production and really tighten your audio up. And then try and invest a little bit of money when you can on a producer, as opposed to just an editor, a producer that is going to make your content better, someone like Joel Sharpton, and step yourself up through that process. Now, I'm not naive enough to think you can do that from day one if you've not got a budget, but it's an aspiration. On the last episode, we talked about having a podcasting vision and what that means, all right? You might see that, do you know what? In order for me to get the real big league of sponsorship and the big listenership, I do need to invest a little bit of money. But in terms of investing a little bit of money, I've got to get 50 episodes under my belt, generate a listener base, get some Patreon income, and then reinvest that back into an editor to step me up to getting a kick-ass big old sponsor. All right. So that's the thing you got to consider. You don't have to buy this straight away. Use something like Ali2 and then step up. All right. So I hope that helps. For everyone wondering what the heck a podcast editor costs, that is my humble 2 cents, all right? So thank you for joining me. It's always a pleasure. Please tell everyone that you know that wants to dig into podcasting. Maybe they want to learn from some straight-talking Brit that coughs and splutters a little bit and just really does not edit their show well enough. That is me, hand up, my bad. But we love it, don't we? So if you know anyone that would benefit from this show, please tell them all about it. Go and check out Captivate.fm for your podcast hosting, analytics, and marketing needs. Until the next time, thank you for joining me. And never forget, the more you expect from yourself, the more you will excel.